Hi, and welcome to this program, The Sun, the source of all life. What relationship do we personally have with her? We're here to explore that today in this first part of a series of four, all around solar energy and solar design, and as part of the Solar Biennale, the first one this year. This is a collaboration between Podcast Zwijger and the Solar Biennale, the solar movement. And we're here to go into this conversation with you all. We have people here with us. Welcome. We have you guys at home watching, and you're very welcome to join the conversation using Mentimeter. And for that, you go to menti.com and you use the following code 66550516. And you can ask your questions and please direct them to any of the speakers here and we'll bring them along in the conversation. The first hour, we will have a hybrid conversation with you all here and you watching at home. And after that, we will have half an hour here to go further into some surprises we have lined up for you. My name is Lindsay Beda, and I'm here with a very special somebody, Pauline Van Der Doma. Welcome, Pauline.
Thank you.
Very happy to sit at this table together with you.
On a very sunny day as well.
On a very sunny day, exactly. Very fully charged up.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Yeah. Pauline is a designer and you're a researcher, and your focus is on clothing, basically, human garment relationships, and developing very smart futuristic textiles and clothing. And you're also here, of course, because you're the co-founder of the Solar Movement and co-initiator of the Biennale. Yeah. So we're going to hear all about it, and we have some very special guests as well to enrich the conversation. So let's just dive into this Solar Biennale idea, because I'm sure a lot of people may not have heard about it yet or don't know that much about it. So can you just tell us what is it, or what have you dreamed up?
Yeah. So the Solar Biennale is an initiative that I founded together with solar designer Marianne van Oubel. And the Biennale will be a large public event taking place for the first time in the Netherlands in September and October this year, where we celebrate the sun and her energy, basically. And it's an initiative that started from the solar movement, which is at the moment a group of solar front runners, and we invite you all to be part of this movement, of course. And the Biennale is our first event where we want to show how design can unlock the power of the sun, recognizing that the world of solar energy is very technocratic driven, typically. It's a lot about finance and economics, about energy payback times, efficiencies. And of course, the technological development is very much needed, but we also believe that there is also a cultural dimension that should be explored and should be emphasized, and an emotional dimension, an ecological dimension that we have to delve into.
Yeah, because you're exploring those 4 dimensions. Maybe you can say something about each one of them.
Yeah, of course.
To understand your thinking,
Yeah. So basically, we kind of like broken down solar energy into more digestible parts, because of course it's a huge domain, and it's also maybe somewhat difficult for people not working in that space to understand what it's all about, and also the fact that it's very systemic, of course, energy in itself already.
What do you mean by that, systemic?
Well, it really is the foundations of our society, and energy plays out. Whether it's renewable energy or existing energies based on fossil fuel, plays out in so many ways in our lives.
Yeah.
On a very personal dimension, like in the way that you live your life, in the way that you transport yourself, cook your food, the clothes you wear, like everything is connected to energy in that sense. But also in a social way, like how do we share energy? What kind of rituals or collective, gatherings does energy and solar specifically enable? And then on a
wait, let me pause you there as well. The social dimension, what it enables. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think energy, of course, is something very, very networked.
Yeah.
And what you see today, of course, we've built all these grids that allow us to live our lives in this, well, in this comfortable way here, at least.
Some of us,
most of us, but yeah. And solar, of course, really radically changes these existing infrastructures, but also can democratize. Of course, that's the premise. We have to see how it unfolds, but because the sun is for everyone.
It
belongs to everyone, and it's not owned by a company, and it's not centralized in that sense. It becomes decentralized, but also social in a way that, of course, the sun in itself, despite the energy that we can get from it, also creates gatherings or forms social practices and creates a sense of community, also more from a ritual perspective and a cultural perspective. And I think that is the power or the beauty that this transition to solar energy can bring us, that we reorient ourselves towards the sun and all the beauty that the sun has to offer.
Yeah, if we imagine it right, the revolution, right?
Yeah.
Because it can also indeed be very technical, very economy driven.
Exactly. There's the risk that we fall into these same traps.
Yeah.
And of course, we're quite socialized to think of energy as a zero-sum game. But in fact, solar energy completely opens up a new space where we can think of abundance.
Right.
And it could be available to everyone.
So interesting. Yeah. That's only the first two dimensions, actually.
Yeah.
Then we also have spatial and environmental. And actually, each of these 4 programs will be about one of these dimensions. But maybe we can touch upon the third and the fourth one.
Yeah, so the spatial is very much about our built environment. So we will be talking about building integrated photovoltaics, but also mobility. How do we transport ourselves with solar cars, for example? And then the environmental dimension zooms out even further, looking at the landscape, the ecology, like where are the resources for solar panels coming from? How do we recycle them? How can we create a circular system? So also, really looking at the environmental impact of it.
Yeah, and they're all very connected, if I hear you.
Of course, they are interwoven, so it's not like you can really separate them. And of course, to each of them, there's also very much a political dimension. And we've also discussed, the more virtual or digital dimension of solar, which I think Arush also knows a lot about. So it's definitely not like it's bound to these different boxes per se.
Exactly.
But,
Okay, so these are the thematics, let's say, of the Solar Biennale, but what is going to happen? What are all the different activities or things that people can join?
Yeah, so we have a central exhibition with our main partner at Nieuwe Instituut in Rotterdam, where they will host the Energy Show, which is an exhibition about both human and solar energy and the intersection of those. It goes back to the history of solar energy, which is of course already decades old, and very interesting to see how it's developed ever since, and presents also these tangible examples of solar design, such as the work of Marianne van Aubel, this beautiful solar lamp called Sunne.
What are we seeing? How does this work?
So Sunne is a lamp that has on one side facing a solar panel that harvests solar energy throughout the day, and on the other side you see this LED panel that actually fluctuates in terms of the hue and the intensity to kind of create a very atmospheric environment, and basically brings the sunlight indoors at nighttime.
It's gorgeous.
So these kind of examples are also presented in the central exhibition, and it's a way to inspire people to show what beautiful ideas are already out there. It's not just a futuristic concept. And actually the Netherlands is well, you can say a front runner, even though we're not the sunniest country per se, but there are a lot of beautiful examples like these solar panels that you might not even recognize as being solar panels from solar visuals.
How can this also be solar panels? Why do we only have the ugly ones?
Well, so they've developed a special printing technique. So they print on top of the solar panels with only minimal energy losses. And you have a lot of design freedom in terms of like patterning and beautiful aesthetics.
Super beautiful,
Yeah, and we don't see them enough, for sure. Yeah. Or even the Lightyear one, of course, is also a beautiful example of a Dutch innovation stemming from the Solar Challenge.
Right, because this was developed by the TU.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And well, now they are actually developing a commercial solar car.
That runs fully on solar.
Solar energy, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then, beyond the exhibition itself, there will be a programming around it throughout the 7 weeks with a solar seminar, a series of solar labs where we invite people to actually work hands-on and develop prototypes and concepts, but also a public programming in the city of Rotterdam where we go into the neighborhoods, outdoors, where the sun shines, and we invite people to join a workshop, to have a dialogue about their relationship with the sun, and to create gatherings and
It's so intriguing and exciting that you have really spotted this kind of possibility or this kind of turning point moment. Like in this moment, we can start imagining how we could our energy future and how we could be just really beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that these futures are also not so singular and also not always so serious. I mean, I'm now looking at the backdrop with the Eames example of this is from 1957.
Oh, wow.
And they developed a solar do-nothing machine. So the name already suggests that this machine is not for something particular, but it's this beautiful apparatus that works on solar energy. And solar can also be very fun and playful, right?
1957, there was already solar energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Hey, and what we have not spoken about yet is your own work.
Yeah.
Can you share what do you do?
Yeah,
what
so
do you create?
I particularly focus on textiles and clothing, and basically since 2013 I've been that's where my fascination for solar energy started, and I've been developing over the years several prototypes and concepts and materials where solar technology has been integrated with textile. Really to make the technology soft and embodied so that you can actually wear solar energy, solar cells on your body with this idea to become more self-sustainable. So we've developed a t-shirt, but also this windbreaker jacket together with the Waddenvereniging, for example. So these are actually being used there.
So what do you use the energy for? Like you wear just jacket and you charge your phone, or
for example, So especially for the people working on the mud flats, of course, they have different apparatus that they bring with them and devices that they can charge. But typically, you can indeed charge a smartphone or any kind of portable USB device with it. And it also shows this exploration that the technology comes in so many forms. What you see here, for example, are these tiny solar beads that are actually from a Japanese manufacturer that are woven into this textile. And it's a completely different look and feel. You might not even recognize it as being a solar panel.
But how does it work? Are there like cables in the garments, or how do you get the energy out?
Yeah, good question. There always needs to be some kind of circuit, of course, and we've explored different ways to do that. This is one of our latest projects, for example, where we're actually weaving the circuit directly into the textile together with these very flexible and semi-translucent solar panels. So there's conductive yarns that are able to conduct energy embedded in this particular textile. This is meant for textile architectures to really cover large facades, for example, and to create buildings that are climate positive. But there's always some kind of energy outlet, of course. So there needs to be some cables. There still needs to be some battery for storage. So it's still a very technical endeavor, even though you, of course, merge it with the design.
But I hear you use words like softness and kind of like, it's really about the experience of it.
Definitely. I think that's one of the most important things that it taught me as a designer, that once you start wearing these textiles, these garments, it's not just about the energy that it generates. It's even more so maybe about changing your relationship with the outdoor environment, becoming more aware of the sun. The garment actually invites you to go outside more often, because that's where you actually harness the energy, and you become more aware of how long you need to be outside to actually charge a phone, instead of just mindlessly plugging it into wall socket.
Yeah.
And you know that energy is not always available also. So you have to design and work with the sun in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. You're more in touch with what's happening around you.
Definitely. Yeah.
Where do you see this going, Pauline? What are your dreams for your own work? I'm curious.
I think for me the fact that the work is grounded in reality is a very important one. I think when I started out, it was more speculative and somewhat more, one-off pieces for exhibitions. And now, of course, I'm more and more driven to implement this in an actual context. So that's also why I'm really eager to explore this solar textile for architectural applications, and to put it into practice so that you can go outside and actually see a building there with dressed in this solar textile.
Yeah, and you're doing it already. You're creating this future already in your studio. What do you think are kind of obstacles that you need help with to make this a reality and to make it big?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think, part of it, of course, is creating the kind of momentum and more understanding from not only the industry side but also on a societal level. That's also why I love giving workshops and organizing moments or events where people can actually respond to the work or make something, join in and make something themselves. Because, again, that really connects it with the actual lives and practices of people, instead of just from a very theoretical or abstract point of view, consider what would be wishful.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, especially also when I approach companies in the technology world, there can be a lot of skepticism because, they think in like the standard kind of panels and the most efficient materials, and textiles in that sense are, not highly regarded per se.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you have to convince people that it's actually worthwhile, or that it can contribute in another way to this energy transition. And,
So activate their vision muscles a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So interesting and so cool.
Thanks.
You're going to be here the whole program, and you also invited, Pauline, a few special guests, and I'm going to introduce the first one to you. And her name is Brecht Duif. She's the co-director, co-founder of Studio Berlin, together with Lenneke Langenhuizen. And Studio Berlin focuses on material research, application development, and creative direction, working together with a whole range of stakeholders, of craftswomen, craftsmen around the world, creative scientists, institutes, industry partners. Their work has been acquired by the MoMA in New York, by Boijmans van Beuningen and other places. So we're very honored that Brecht is here today to share more of their work and their thinking for Project Sun Plus, that is about how we as humans relate to the sun.
Thank you for your introduction, Lynn. Yes, we were feeling so attracted to the sun, and always, it's always been said that we have to look out for the sun in the last years, decades. So we thought, let's look at this. I really talk in another way than on the energy level of the sun. So, but that will become clear. We really thought, let's dive into the relation between the human and the sun in different times, in different cultures, in different places in the world, to see how we can rebalance this relation. So it's really about finding a new balance. This hand with the sun represents that. It's good that sorry. So too much sun is not good. Not enough sun is also not good. So how can we relate to it in a health? Yeah, how can we be in a healthy balance with the sun? We did a whole research. We put it into books. Why, a what, and a how book. Let's go through it a little bit. So the first religions worldwide, they were all related to sun. So it's of course it's the source of any form of life. So this distance that we got to it felt very weird. There are three main problems that we found out. One is the creams that we put on our body. Not all, but many have harmful ingredients that are not good for the seashore. So the life underneath also suffers from that. Another thing is that when we protect our eyes with sunglasses, it also tricks our brain, and we don't make our own protection against the sun. So we get more sunburned. Another thing is that all the polyester that is used as sunshades, it's a lot, but polyester is a material that is with the sun directly breaks into very small particles, and it doesn't age long in the sun. Of course, there's also a very different relation with the sun. So if people would like to get tanned and walk ideally almost naked, or you dress yourself to protect yourself, or you dress yourself because of religious reasons, it all depends. In history, we also used other things than cream. For example, olive oil. It has a factor of 2, SPF 2. SPF 2 means that you can be 2 times as much in the sun as you can without the protection. Then there are different kind of wearables that are directly on the body, but also different ways how we seek for shade in the heat of the sun. So you have, of course, the trees, nomad tents, but also more recent buildings that's a building is full of greenery, or that trees create also a very cooling effect. So the middle down one is a modern solution to create like a thickness of shades in order to make a cool place. This is seen from one material, so a mirror. It's used as to reflect the sun and become even more tanned. The picture in the middle is a very small town in Norway where people do not have the sun in a long time in the winter, and they placed mirrors in order to reflect the sun back in the town. This one has a very direct relation with one of our products. It's 2 times sunglasses existing out of one material, which is actually perforated. This is our unseen sunglasses. It's a range from dark skin to light skin, and it's a very thin metal sheet where it takes out 1/3 of the sun, and 2/3 of the sun comes through, and it's enough information for your body to produce still your own protection against sunburn. Of course, it makes a big difference where you are in the world, on which moment, what type of skin you have, what kind of protection you need. So, for example, in one situation, dark people might only need UPF 2, and a very light person needs UPF 50. So we did a whole research on weavings. The thickness of the yarn has an effect on the UPF factor. So when we talk about the protection factor in textiles, UPF is the term instead of SPF, but the meaning is the same. The weave density also has an effect, the different weaves. And of course we had a lot of, we really dived into the clothing, old clothing, and also the clothing of very warm cultures and places to see how you can make like a covering wearable but very airy, and now I go a bit quicker because I'm almost out of time. Factor 8 is the factor where we can still produce our own vitamin D. So this is very good to be exactly on that level. We also made shade cloths. This here we try to make like a thick shade cloth in order also to have a cooling effect. This is derived from the army cloth, but we try to make it much more human, and the laser cut is now its hands. This is the latest project. It derived from the Sunplus research, where we developed a PLA, a bioplastic, and we tried as much as possible to split UVB from UVA. So UVA is not going through and UVB is going through. So we can still produce our own vitamin D. Here on the World Expo in Dubai, we created a huge curtain which represents the vegetation, which was once the oil underneath. Because of course the oil in Dubai derives from vegetation in the end. So it also became a huge canopy, and here you see, because the solar panels from Marianne were in the rooftop. So here you see how the two come together in a very nice way. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing so much of your knowledge and research and work so far. And I'm curious to know more about several things. But starting off, maybe you mentioned the early religions of humans. Do you both know more about like how the earliest humans that we can like still reach out to in a way, how they related to the sun, or what the sun used to be for us as humans?
Yeah, I quite liked it that in the beginning you called the sun her.
It's different in culture, in different cultures. Yeah, whether it's a her or a him.
Yeah.
Definitely
or gender
her,
neutral,
right?
I don't know.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
That might be the best. It's indeed very different, but of course it's such an obvious thing in your surrounding, part of daily life, and I can imagine if you know nothing that it's very clearly
the source or the
it's also that was simply also the basis of our start of this project. It was a very instinctive reaction, like when the sun is there, you want to feel the energy somehow.
No, and I think of course since it's so closely tied to being a source of life, I think and being present all over the world, every culture has that kind of historic development and religion and like sun rituals and offerings and
but have you uncovered any extra interesting or rituals we didn't know about, or that made you think about like, wait, We forgot to do that for the sun.
What I found interesting was the recurring connection with textiles. There's a lot of sun deities that are also spinners. So they spin also yarn, and I like that kind of...
like the sun rays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That for me was fascinating.
Yeah,
Anyway, I
imagine.
think there's a lot of, the fact that you can... Well, your work is a beautiful example of it, and also existing practices like, that we don't practice actually today anymore much, but that you can lie linen in the sun and bleach it, for example. These kind of, connections between the sun and textile.
Yeah, and of course also then to protect yourself again from it. Yeah, and it's also interesting then if you look at the UPF values on non-bleached natural material, it has a certain number, and then if you bleach it, it's less protective.
The SPF changes.
Yeah, but then if you dye it, depending on where you dye, what you dye it with, it's again like indigo is very good one to dye it with.
Interesting. I don't think we ever think about the SPF of our clothing.
No, like a normal white T-shirt is SPF 15. 15.
15. Okay.
Yeah. So the average.
Yeah. Interesting. Before I go into my next question, I want to remind all of you and also watching that you can also ask your questions if you go to menti.com and use that code that you see 66550516. Because I wanted to ask you to maybe, as you're both humans who have kind of been exploring this relationship with the sun for a longer time than we're kind of being initiated into this now. Can you maybe describe your intimate relationship, like just you and the sun? Like, how do you experience that intimate relationship, both of you?
Go ahead.
It's just it's you want to be in it. You want to be. You feel that it gives you energy.
You consciously experience the energy. The
sun
and
of course it's very different. Like in Holland, I think many people do have it because we do not have that much sun. So when it's there, but I think it's also important that we dare again to trust our own intuition. I mean, if we become like, then you seek for shade, and it's also, I think it's also related to the moment that you might get sunburned. If we just learn again to listen to these kind of feelings, I think it's very good. And also so we gain vitamin D from it. We can take pills, but the vitamin D from the pill goes through our body much quicker than when we get it from the sun, because then the whole system is like awake, and your body does much more with it. And I think if we trust this intuition more, I think then
exactly, really feel that balance that you spoke about, when it's not enough and when it's too much, you can actually really feel that.
And also this knowledge about the wearing sunglasses, that you actually the body is smarter than we think. So we can make our own protection, but we need to give the body the right information.
Exactly. We'll get back to that. I'm curious, Pauline.
For me, I think
intimate.
Working with the sun, I think added additional dimensions, I think, in that relationship. In small things, like I've done these kind of experiments where I try to not use any artificial light in my home, which is something so self-evident that you just flick on the light switch. But if you don't, then suddenly you become much more aware of how the sun is actually entering your home and creating patterns of shadows, especially with lots of plants in our house. You become more aware of the kind of graphic layer that the sun brings somehow. And also the colors, like in that image you showed from the expo, also like how do different materials work together with the sun. I think that's very for me very new awareness, basically, that once you tune into it, like you see it, you can't stop seeing it, basically. And I think, the same goes for when working with textiles and solar energy. Then you're suddenly also drawn to the shading effects, but also the texture of it. And indeed the rhythms. The fact that it's not always available. And we sometimes have that in the studio, that we're making something, and then it's a cloudy day and you want to test it, and you're like, where's the sun? Like, so you become really attuned to like, the sun and the weather conditions, but even how it's turning around, in which part of the year you are, which season. So.
Yeah, exactly. We have a question about your fabrics, actually. Someone from the audience asked, is it complicated to wash fabric embedded with solar cells? Also, is there a danger of being shocked? Electroshock.
Nice questions.
Good question, yeah.
Definitely. It's definitely tricky to wash them, for sure, because... of course, most solar panels, they're quite weatherproof, you could say. So the water isn't necessarily an issue. It's mostly, for example, with the solar shirt that you see here, if you imagine putting this in the washing machine in your laundry, the mechanical friction, the fact that the shirt will soak up all the water, become very heavy, and then in the cycle of the washing machine gets like completely squashed. Of course, that's something that solar panels or electronics in general don't really like. That was definitely an issue with this shirt. Of course, breaking the solar panels up into smaller pieces helps a little bit with that, to create more flexibility. And now we still have that challenge that we developed this architectural fabric that's meant to be outdoors in very extreme conditions. It's not the washing machine, but it's wind and water and UV indeed, that indeed can break down fibers. It's a continuous research.
Yeah, interesting. But you're not going to get an electric shock when you wear it.
No.
Okay.
Of course, we do take care of that. And of course, especially when you wear it, when it's something meant for on the body, then we make sure that the voltage is in a safe range, that you don't get shocked. No.
Yeah, I thought you would. Last question maybe for now, because I was I didn't actually realize what you said about sunglasses, and that when we wear them, our eyes can't like warn the rest of our body about how much sun there is, and then we get more sunburned, if I understood it correctly.
Yes.
Are there more ways to kind of like put a mirror in our faces of how we are currently really disconnected from the sun?
I also think when I look back to my own attitude, like when I wanted to get so tanned, I really stay in the sun so long, even make it wet again, and it's ridiculous. It doesn't. Yeah. So I think this whole body temperature, but also that you feel for your skin that you need to get out. I think it's but also that we should listen, that we should get in. Like if you are working all day and with this, you see through the window the blue sky, you need to go out for lunch. So it drags us out of our especially in these kind of countries, of course. So I think it's very different.
So grab your chance. Like if when you feel like I need to get out, just listen to your body again. Actually, I think most of us are like too pale these days. We're just like stuck behind our laptops the whole time. We're not
and it's also depending on your skin type, how much sun you need in order to make your own vitamin D.
Exactly.
The lighter the skin, you only need minutes. The darker the skin, you need sometimes an hour.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You need more time outside.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in between.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm learning. How about you, Pauline? How do you see, or like what?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking for me also one of the disconnects is really in that we don't really live with the sun so much, especially in a country like the Netherlands. Last year I did a design residency together with Studio Paya and Bureau Ruimtekoers in Mozambique with a local group of indigenous artisans. And
very cool.
Yeah, and there we were combining their a craft of weaving with Paya with solar technology, and having this craft exchange as well. Here are some examples of that. And what I really learned also from these women and their way of living is so much more attuned to the daily rhythms that are initiated by the sun, but also the materials that they use. Well, here the paya fibers, the palm leaves are being dried in the sun, which later showed this beautiful coherence with the lamps that they made that were also charging in the sun. They were both put outside during the day. And you wake up with the light, you go to bed with the light. Obviously there's also a very dark side to this, because these particular women live in a peninsula without any access to electricity or even clean running water. I think that taught me a lot about like how we live with the sun and all of course our privileges, but also the fact that we don't really honor or cherish the sun.
Because what do you think it does to a human when you do honor the rhythm of the sun and the light and the dark?
Yeah, for me, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that as humans we have placed ourselves above nature, which is very much this Anthropocene era that we're in. Which you see play out in so many ways, and I think it's part of the destructive kind of phase we're in.
Yeah.
And if we want to move more towards like a ecocentric way of living, then this is the sun is, I think, one of the keys.
One of the keys.
There's probably more, but I think that's a very essential, critical.
To become human again, actually, rather than the structobots that are.
To know that we are part of nature and not above it.
It might be the way out.
Yeah,
that would be beautiful.
Might be the way out of the Anthropocene into the ecocentric age. Yeah, beautiful. We have our second guest speaker, and thank you to you, Brecht, and Pauline also again. We have Arush Azami gearing up for us. Arush is a musician at heart and a very good one as well. Used to be a professional one, and jamming is really his way of living and doing business. He has been for the last 16 years an activist entrepreneur in the energy sector, really coming up with disruptive concepts, visions, and companies. Very much inspired by nature and art, and also by a deep care for humans, and not only on this side of the planet, but also in other countries, like Niger, where he grew up. His latest company is Unify.energy, and he will tell us a little bit more about his vision. Unify.energy is a company that develops new operating systems for local energy communities, which is very much a part of the future of energy that he sees. Arush Azami.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for the introduction. And it's so wonderful to be here. And I want to, first of all, acknowledge how beautiful and important it is that you're engaging into this endeavor and really putting the word out there, because our source for everything is the sun. So my work revolves around rethinking energy. And in that sense, I want to say it's power to the people, but this time literally. And on this picture, you see, actually, it's a picture that my mother took in my childhood. So I'm the little boy in the middle, and my brother Omid is sitting next to me, and then there's our neighbor Amadou, and we're watching television. And I didn't grow up in the Netherlands. I grew up in Niger in West Africa. And watching television was a big thing, because we had one of the 3 televisions in our town, and there was one national broadcast, and it had shows 3 times per week, We could only watch them if there was electricity available at that moment. So for us, energy access was not a given. And still, in a country like Niger, only 16% of the people today have access to modern forms of energy. So that means that in terms of energy access, it's the 7th poorest country in the world, which is kind of strange because Niger is also the 2nd best country in the world in terms of the amount of sunlight hitting the Earth's surface. So actually, this is an example of the revolution going on where people are adapting to the abundance of the sun. And every time that I go back there, I see that there is a massive increase in the amount of people in all kinds of villages and towns that are using the sun's power to fulfill their needs. Today, energy and conflict are very much interlocked. If you look at the Global Peace Index, which is a very elaborate data set that is updated every year, it reads very easily. If you live in a green country in this map, you're really lucky that you live there. And if you live in a red country, you're going to do everything within your power to move to a green country. And if you do a layover on this map of the places in the world where we extract the most energy from, you see that that's mostly in the red and orange countries. Energy and conflict are very, very closely related. And every time that we fuel our cars, for example, we actually fuel a conflict somewhere. We finance a conflict somewhere. And that can only be overcome. And this is what one of the aspects that I love also in your manifest, is that the sun cannot be owned. And as soon as you go to ownerless, it's pointless to fight wars over it. And also, if you look globally at the amount of energy per capita, so per person in the world, that we have available to us, then you see that, for example, China, which is the largest energy using country in the world, per capita has only 1/3 of the amount of energy of the average American. And if you look at India, it's only 1/10. And if you look at Niger, it's 1/100th. So that means that we expect the people in Niger to do whatever we are doing with 100 times less energy. So we are trying to tell people that they should use less energy. And I believe that we should be on the team of using more and more and more energy, because there is such an abundance, but it doesn't come from corporates and it doesn't come from oil and coal and gas. Also, I want to acknowledge, though, that all the energy that we use is solar energy, because also oil and coal and gas are forms of solar energy, but they're not effective because we had to process them for millions of years before we could use them. So solar power now is the most direct and most effective form of solar energy that we can think of, which is all the energy that we can think of. Earth, very simply put, is a closed system. It consists of atoms, which is matter, and this has been a constant for the past 4.3 billion years, and of energy. And also, this has been a constant over the past 4.3 billion years. So the only question that we have to ask is, how do we deploy these, and how do we put them together, and how do we put them to use to be of service to the planet, to the entire system, and therewith of service to us as humans, as a part of that system. So we're not above nature, as we just, as you just mentioned. I don't believe so much that we are outside of nature. We have to learn that we are one integral part of nature. So what this requires is a different mindset. And I love this quote by Richard Buckminster Fuller, who said in 1969, you don't change things by fighting the existing reality. If you want to really change something, then build a new model that's going to make the old model obsolete. And this is what I try to put my own daily personal energy in. Try and build new models that are going to make the old model obsolete. And therewith, about 7 years ago, I started with the idea of an internet of energy, because I love the internet. I was raised by an internet pioneer, my mother, who in 1989 was online, in the year that the www protocol was written. And this entire idea, the initial idea that we had of the internet, was an idea of democratization, of universal access to knowledge and data. And I believe that we are actually now getting into the same phase with our energy system. Everything is connected to everything else. I sometimes refer to it as energy Buddhism in that sense, because everything is connected to everything. And therewith we are making the move away from these centralized systems where you have one hub and then a bunch of spokes that lead to users, consumers, as long as they pay for it, you know, and in real life it looks very sexy like this. And then through decentralized models like these, like the rooftop of Rotterdam Central Station, for example, where I have my office, we're moving to a distributed system. And what I love about the distributed system is you can no longer tell which one is a producer, which one is a user. There's no consumers anymore. So this is a peer-to-peer energy system, which is powered by digital technologies that we can dispose of as of today. It's multi-carrier, so it's not about electricity alone. It's also about heat and about molecules, and it's distributed by design. And it basically works like this. You know, if for example, you have an electric car, you can charge it with your own solar panels or with the neighbor's solar panels, but you can also use that battery power to power your office space, for example, or power somebody else's water cooker. So there's not one supplier that you have a contract with anymore. You're just a part of a network and you are a prosumer in that network. So we're no longer consumers, we're prosumers. And that is power to the people. With that, you can say that the energy transition is 4 simultaneous transitions because it's not about technology alone. It's about the economy. We're changing the economy from the bottom up because our role as humans is different. It's a societal shift because the way in which we are connected as humans to one another is shifting. And it's an institutional transition because we need new laws and new regulations. So in this reality, you're no longer connected to a grid because you depend on it. You're connected because you bring value to it. And all of us can do that. Over the past year, in a very interesting project, we brought a bunch of very interesting people in nature, in the woods, and we were exploring, like, what are the leading design principles for these new energy systems? So we're getting from A to B, not by changing A a little bit until it looks like a B. No, you get from A to B via B. So we started with this idea of, okay, so what should it look like? And then tomorrow's principles, they're based upon, and this is exactly what we learn from nature, they're based upon generosity and balance and about peer-to-peer. And nature works on the premises of abundance and not of scarcity. So this one I'm gonna secretly skip, but it's basically if you can be 80% autonomous, you're not gonna go off-grid because nature is not off-grid. We're all connected, but we are all semi-autonomous. Then suddenly you can release the pressure of this entire energy system, which makes it so much more, well, relieved of stress, but also cheaper and easier and more effective to run. And it basically works like we're moving away from a planning and control system like this classical orchestra to a jam session, to a sense and response system, because we live in the moment and the harmony in the system continuously moves from one to another, which means that we're tuning into it and we're moving with the system rather than trying to impose our own realities upon it. And this is what it looks like. It's a flock of birds. Who's the boss here? Who's the navigation bird here? Who's the planning and control bird here? There are none, but all the intelligence is embedded in every node on this network. So this is exactly what we are using technology for today, to build this. The Internet of Energy has its own HTTP equivalent, which is a power type transfer protocol, but it secretly stands for power to the people. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. And this is it. Dream and develop those dreams into action, because that's the only thing that counts in the end. Thanks.
Thank you, Arush. Please join us at the table.
Will do.
Yes.
Oh, and there's water here.
Yes, there is. Another amazing presentation. The only thing that was kind of disappointing to me is that you said you would do it as Cartman.
And I didn't. No.
You didn't.
No, I got stage fright.
All right. Well, maybe you can give one of your answers though. As Cartman. In all seriousness, though, I want to ask both of you. I mean, we're speaking about a serious paradigm shift,
Yeah.
an energy shift, in which we also mean to make this beautiful future available to everyone. Because right now, on Earth, I don't know if you have the percentages ready, Arush, how many people have access to energy?
57% of humanity has access to, does not live in energy poverty.
Right.
43%, 2.9 billion people still live in energy poverty and mainly rely on biomass, for example, for cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
So almost half
Yeah.
of us, yeah. And also in a country like the Netherlands, there's a lot of people that are living in energy poverty. It's all relative, of course, but are spending a lot more on energy than others relatively. Trying to make ends meet. So I want to ask you, first of all, how do we make this energy transition really, or this beautiful solar future actually available to everybody?
Well, so this is not happening overnight.
Yeah.
It takes decades, and that's the harsh reality of it. So, yes, more and more people in the Netherlands live in energy poverty. And in the Netherlands, we have a different definition of energy poverty than globally, by the way. So the World Health Organization says you live in energy poverty if you have to rely on collecting biomass for cooking. In the Netherlands, we say if you have to spend more than 10% of your income on your energy bill, then you live in energy poverty.
Right.
But I know rich people by now, that make 5,000 euros a month and still have to pay more than 500 euros a month on their energy bill because of the gas prices that are skyrocketing these days.
Yeah, so it's a very different form of energy poverty.
Yeah, but it's a massive problem by now because, there's still so many people, for example, that live in social housing neighborhoods, in rental homes with single glazing, very poorly insulated, and then suddenly they're confronted with energy bills that are higher than their rent. So how are you going to make ends meet then?
Yeah.
And if you then calculate that these people oftentimes have to work 1.5 days every week to pay their energy bill, then suddenly you realize, okay, this is poverty.
Yeah.
Because so you're losing your time on fulfilling your basic needs, whereas I believe that those should be considered a basic right. Energy is a basic need, so it should be considered a basic right.
Universal right, like the name of your foundation.
Yes, exactly. So I founded a foundation in 2017 named Universal Right, which is all about recognizing access to renewable energy as a human right. Because when we installed in 1948 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we included education, a roof over your head, but we didn't include energy. And we didn't know how yet. But imagine having to educate children with no access to energy. Imagine healthcare with no access to energy. It's not possible. So we have to get the basics first.
Yeah.
And energy is the basic truth that we need to fulfill before we can do anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very important point. But how? Because indeed the sun is for everyone. But the solar technology or the solar panels or whatever we use to harvest the energy of the sun is not. It's owned by somebody still.
Exactly.
Or how do you see that in a beautiful energy for all future?
Yeah, there's of course this kind of conflict of interest because solar today is the cheapest form of energy. It's something not even
that's also
everyone
important to
realizes.
Sink in, yeah.
So in that sense, if you could access it, and especially with indeed the skyrocketing prices, it's such a logical thing to consider, right? But at the same time, indeed, you need to have access to the solar panels and the systems. But at the same time, we know that these, the payback times are decreasing and decreasing. So if there only are, more fitting financing schemes and, models so that anyone, even if you don't have the funds right now to put these on your roof, but you do get access through these financing schemes, then that could be a solution. And I'm not a financial expert, but I'm sure there's very smart people out there who could come up with these models.
Yeah.
But then again, it's something so tied to our capitalist system, our politics, regulation, and that's why I think we should try also with the Biennale to mobilize these people and come up with alternative ways.
Yeah, so we need people beyond the designers and the artists and the finance experts. Yeah, but in a place like Niger, Arush.
Well, the thing is, what you're saying is so spot on, but the models are there. The only thing is that we need bankers to realize that there's going to be no bank with no energy.
Yeah.
So first you need to take care of the energy system.
Yeah.
And as soon as you realize that, then you're not going to count into the financial return on investment on your assets, your solar panels anymore. You're going to count in what is the energy return on capital invested. So I'm going to put in money, and it's not about getting the money back, it's about getting enough energy out of it. And after that, we're going to go to the energy return on energy invested. So how energy positive is your solar panel? And by now, the energy return on energy invested for a solar panel is about factor 12 globally. So that means that with every amount of energy that we put in producing solar panels, we get 12 times that amount of energy back into our system. That's a far better return. This is the pension plan that I want. I want my pension to be in energy and not in money that I don't trust. Yeah. Because energy is always there and it's physical. It's a physical value. Yeah. So we need to realize that. And then I really believe that we will adopt these models.
Yeah.
The answer's already here. So.
The answer
it
is
already
sitting here at the table.
I don't have the answer. But the thing is, we need to look at it from a different mindset. And that's where the artists are so crucial. Because I love working with artists. And I derive my inspiration from two things. One is nature, because nature has always worked in a decentralized manner and always peer-to-peer. And arts, because it's the artists that bring the abstractions and complexities into realities that we can understand and grasp. Yeah. And what I'm really advocating for is that in every strategic team that is concerned with the energy transition, we should include artists, because they will break open the mindset and get the engineers to do the work from a different perspective.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what the Solar Biennale is
there
about.
Yeah.
Exactly why we're building this movement that everybody needs to be a part of, because we literally need everybody to make this like flip the switch in our own minds. We've come to the end of the first hour of our program. I've really loved listening to all of you. You sketched this beautiful, gorgeous, inspiring future in which we live more in tune with the sun, the source. You raised some very important points, Pauline, in the beginning, for instance, about, that we don't want to just continue our same relationship with energy that's exploitative, that's just like taking energy for granted, but rather redefine our relationship. And, it can be so artful and it can be so, like what we want. We also spoke with Brecht about, living with the sun, listening to your body as well as the main way to help us kind of be in tune with nature again, and not be like completely disconnected and just destroying everything we get our hands on as humans, but rather really being regenerative and as we are supposed to be. You also raised this very crucial point about how energy without an owner also does not result in conflict, that we are financing conflict the way we are. And it's very obvious, of course, in what's happening in the Ukraine, but you showed us that it's actually a universal story.
It's all over.
When there is like energy being extracted, there is actually conflict. So this is really such a gigantic opportunity and such an exciting one as well, to use our imagination and our vision capacities to make this shift. So I want to thank you, Pauline, Arush, Brecht. Really loved listening to you. Thank you all for being here, for watching. As I said, this is only the first one in a series of 4. So there's a lot more to speak about and uncover around this topic. And so you can find that on the Zwijger.nl website, along with other programming that's always every night interesting. If you would like to support the Zwijger, these programs are always going to be for free, like the sun. But if you would like to be more involved, you can become a member. For that, you can scan the QR code that you will see right when we round off. And for now, I want to thank you, wish you a beautiful dark night, and wake up with the sun tomorrow.